Previously on Comic Book Chronicles.
From Cambrian Comics, it's issues 0 through 3 of Kaijus and Cowboys. Yeah, that's how I say it. I feel like that's how you're supposed to say it. Kaijus and Cowboys. I mean, isn't that more fun than just saying Kaijus and Cowboys? In a book that's meant to be a throwback to the escapist comics of the Bronze Age, humans have fled the Earth and are in cryosleep above what they hope is a new world. But that world is overrun by kaiju, i.e. giant Godzilla-type monsters. And it's up to a series of robots called hunters to make the world safe for humans to inhabit. This is the story of one of those robots. The whole escapist comic book concept kind of tracks, because I wouldn't call Kaijus and Cowboys a masterclass in plot development per se, but that's not necessarily the point. I feel like the emphasis is on the action and the visuals, especially in issues 0 and 1, when we have very little dialogue and it's just the art telling the story. And that, for me, was the big drawing point for Kaijus and Cowboys, the art. It's very imaginative as far as the monsters are concerned. It's richly detailed. The colors pop. The action smacks. Is that something the kids say? It smacks? The action is very good. Our main character is the bot with no name. He's essentially a silent robot cowboy whose job is to take out kaiju. And he's got a little robot butler type sidekick. I feel like if you enjoyed the first season of The Mandalorian, you'll be into the bot with no name. There's a similar kind of silent assassin vibe there. One of the only potential drawbacks to Kaijus and Cowboys is that it's very exposition heavy. There's literally a page of exposition in every issue. Now, on one hand, it's good that they put that page there to remind readers of what the background of the story is, but at the same time, it's just very exposition heavy. There's a lot to work your way through. But the good news is, at least as far as I'm concerned, is that once you've read the exposition enough as the issues go on, you get it. So it's a lot at first, but once you get it, you've got it. The Kickstarter for issue 4 of Kaijus and Cowboys is scheduled to go up in April. You can find issues 0 through 3 on Indie Planet or on Global Comics. You can also follow author Matthew Blair and artist Frankie B. Washington on social media. I'm game for more Kaijus and Cowboys. I gotta remember. Kaijus and Cowboys.
All right, folks, our guest today is the co-creator of the independent comic book Kaijus and Cowboys. Issues 1 through 3 are available now on globalcomics.com and indieplanet.com. And issue 4 is coming soon, as it was just successfully funded via Kickstarter. Yes. I'll ask him if there's the best way to say the title of this comic book. Ladies and gentlemen, the artist for Kaijus and Cowboys, Frankie B. Washington. Welcome, sir.
Hey, everybody. Kaijus and Cowboys.
There's my question. I do believe, because people are going to see the TikTok before they see this. Yep. I do believe I created the best and perhaps even correct way to say the name of the book. Would you agree?
I loved it, man. I thought it was a hoot, man. We're supposed to have fun, man. I loved it.
There you go. And you know what? That's at the center of it. That's what Kaijus and Cowboys is. It's fun.
Yes.
Escapist. Yes. Comic books. Now,
yes.
So for people who've never heard of it, tell us about Kaijus and Cowboys. What's it about? What is it? Go.
Whoa, Kaijus and Cowboys is a story where we're starting off on an alien world, and the alien world is being, settled by these robots. These robots are actually preparing settlements on this alien world that is filled with kaijus and daikaijus. Now, let me explain something. Daikaijus are technically Godzilla-sized creatures. So,
Yeah.
so there's Dai Kaijus, and then you have Kaijus, which could be anything smaller than that. So Bigfoot. I mean, we call them cryptids, but anything like that, smaller size. So anyway, these robots are trying to build these settlements for humans. Now the humans are asleep
Mhm.
in a massive ark that's hovering above this planet, and it's being
Yes.
controlled by the Father Mind AI. So all above in the
Mhm.
sky, Father Mind is watching, while down below the settlements are being built for supposedly the humans.
Mhm.
But you know, hey,
Supposedly.
we'll let the story go and let the story tell you. But the thing is that while that's going on, the Kaijus and Daikaijus, well, they're resisting in a nutshell. And
Mhm.
so now because of this, the Father Mind created these hunter bots. And these hunter bots are these specialty robots that go out and they battle against the Kaijus to protect the settlements, from their rampages. And then our story
Mhm.
opens up with one particular hunter bot, who is Hunter Bot Bwin, the bot with no name. And he looks like
Bot with no name.
the bot with no name. He looks like the classic Western trope. Now, is there a reason
Yes.
why they look like that? I don't know. You have to read the story on that side because each robot has a unique nature to them. So that goes deeper into what than the story of why they look a certain way. Why you see other robots that may look somewhat like more military mecha basic, while others look much more advanced. There's a bunch of different stuff that's going on in there.
There's a story element to it.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So, I mean, what you just ran through, I mean, it's a dense premise. And I mean, there's a lot of details there.
Yes.
Where and when do the ideas for this book originate? I mean, is it your mind and our author Matthew Blair's mind?
Yep.
Is it you guys blending stuff together? Does one person come up with it and the other person, go with it?
All right.
Just how did the book originate from a conceptual
Wow.
perspective?
Well, me and Matthew have a relationship. Like we've been working on
Hmm.
a webcomic series previously. So Kaijus and Cowboys was conceived in 2019, but previously
2019.
2019, and then previously, say like additional 5 years ahead, we were already working on a webcomic series called The Secret Lives of Supervillains. And that was based off of Matthew Blair's own stories. And then he brought me in as an artist. And so we was working on it. And while we were working, we built this relationship. And he knew that I loved kaijus and I love robots. And so out of the blue,
Hmm.
he actually came out of the blue and it was in a conversation in 2019. And he said, hey, Frank, would be cool to be like a story of like a cowboy fighting maybe kaijus. It was like a weird conversation, and I honestly
Yeah.
did not think anything else of it. I just was like, oh, and then I went to my studio and I had one of those like my brain, something just ignited, and I saw the image of Bwin, and immediately I thought of Clint Eastwood, Machine Man, Jack Kirby's Machine Man. Let me rephrase that: Jack Kirby's
Hmm.
Machine Man, and Jet Jaguar from the Godzilla versus Megalon. I could see the images
Okay.
and I just sort of converged them together. And then Hunter Bot Bwin took form. And then I said, hey, Matthew, look what I drew. And Matthew was like, oh my God. And then from there, we began building up on it.
So he had the seed for the idea, and then
Yeah,
you kind of took it and rolled with it.
yeah. He just had this weird concept. He said, Frank, a cowboy and then fighting kaijus like that. And then I think that once he came with that initial thought, then I slept on it and then had the drawing. And then once he saw the drawing, then he was like, oh, there's a capability for something more. Because I think when I drew it, I
Mhm.
think initially I drew that, and then I drew a bunch of like citizen people, little robot people, and I drew a bunch of different things to go along with it. And because I was having fun with it. I love westerns. I think western is one of our it's an American, it's just a classic American trope
Yeah,
of just journey,
absolutely.
adventure, underdog against whatever. I mean, there's so much you can do with the Western kind of mythology. And the fact that, that we could play around in that field, I was like, yeah, I went crazy with it. So then I sent him the illustrations and then he was like, oh, okay, let's do this.
Excellent. Now, talk to me more about some of the books you just mentioned, the books that inspired Kaijus and Cowboys, because I've
Okay.
seen you guys reference the Bronze Age of
Yes.
storytelling and
Yes.
artistry. Now, we mentioned Jack Kirby. Can you give me
Mhm.
some names? Give me some titles.
Sure,
What
sure.
and what made them so special?
Well, as a child of the 1970s, I was born in
Mhm.
1970. So I would say the Bronze Age is that span. So you're looking at a good, like, I would say from 70s and to the 90s. So maybe a 20-year span.
70s through 90s.
Yeah, it's heading right into the 90s, where a good like 20 plus year span of just escapism entertainment. Now, escapism
Mhm.
entertainment, in my view, is entertainment that was it wasn't hyper analyzed, or hyper
Right.
critiqued. We just accepted it, like $6 Million Man. I was like, oh yeah, Steve Austin, even though he was running, I was like, that guy's running 60 miles per hour. My mind accepted it. I didn't overanalyze it. So the comic books that during that time when I was really getting into it, I would say my first comic that really inspired me was the Shogun Warriors by Marvel Comics. It was done by
Shogun
written
Warriors.
the Shogun Warriors by Doug Munich. Munich, I hope I'm not saying his name wrong, last name, but he was the writer. And then Herb Trimpe, who was one of my heroes, and he passed away in 2015, I believe. I got to meet him and talk to
Mm.
him before he passed away, and just to tell him how much it inspired me, his artwork. I loved the energy in the artwork. I felt that he had captured a lot of the Showa era of Toho, where it was just the monsters, the stuff was fun. It was energy. I love the fact that Godzilla didn't look like the Toho. He wasn't trying to emulate how Godzilla looked. He created their own Marvel look for Godzilla. So that was a pinnacle book for me. Devil Dinosaur, another Jack Kirby comic book. Fantastic. I mean, you're talking Sal and John Buscema's Conan the Barbarian for action sequences. These were the things I grew up just being inundated with. John Byrne's run
Mhm.
on Fantastic Four and X-Men. I mean, just seeing these incredible, massive scenes of action. Then you move over to the animated shows. I mean, when I think of Kaijus and Cowboys, I think of it as an animated show. Animated shows that
Mhm.
we watched when I grew up, like Galaxy Rangers and Bionic Six, then Humanoids, things like that, they would just immediately go into stuff, and then they would build their story up.
Mhm. Yeah.
You immediately be like they'll have like the opening will come on, literally in the opening credits, it'd be like some riff, some guitar riff, music's amazing, and then it's like long ago in a distant galaxy somewhere, and then you get all this information very quickly with the music, and then boom, you're right in that cartoon, and that cartoon takes you on that
That
journey, and then over the
that tracks
episodes.
with the yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, no. Well, as soon as you get into that episode, now you're pulled in. Now you're like,
Mhm.
we got you now. Now you're like, I'm invested. I'm invested to find out what's going on. What's going to tell me? Jason the Wheeled Warriors. I don't know if a lot of people remember that animated show. That was I owned the DVD just because the music was incredible. It was amazing. And
Wow.
and then once they had the opening scene, they would explain a little bit about it. And then once you went inside of it, it's like, oh my God, I'm like, what? Tell me more. I need to see more. That's the kind of
Yeah,
stuff that I wanted to
totally.
do. I wanted to do it in paper, in the form of a comic
Do
book.
you do you think that modern entertainment in this era is overanalyzed? Is that
Yes,
part of where the desire
yes,
to
yes,
sort of get into that escapist vibe
yes,
is? Do we
yes,
think too much?
yes. I do. And I think it's unfortunate because it's it's weird for me to see things get so analyzed in a sense. Like again, like for instance, we'll say like the Godzilla versus Kong. Like I see
Mhm.
Godzilla times Kong that just came out. Excuse me. I see what they're doing. Like I'm like these guys are totally doing show us stuff. They're using technology. I get it. But when you start seeing people saying stuff where they're just like, well, the creature should, if it weighs that much, it shouldn't be able to run. Things like that. Where it's
Mhm.
like, why do you even? It's an imaginary creature. You know,
Yeah.
the whole point of it is that you're supposed to be escaping from what you're living. So anything outside
Mhm.
my window, I close my window and now I can escape into this world, wherever this world. It could be fantasy, it could be horror, it could be sci-fi, it could be whatever. But you should be able to escape in this world, believe the physics in this world, and accept it for what it is. And then you walk away and go, okay,
Not
cool.
everything has to mirror our world
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. I think that's one of the problems. I think that what happened with comic books is that we started seeing too many comic books trying to be like the real world. And then there's no differential. I mean, I remember when the Punisher first came out, for instance, it's a character. Very, he was like, he went out and whatever, but there still was a comic booky
Yeah.
level to him. But then over the years, you start seeing that it started getting kind of realistic. I mean, you down to the point of the weaponry he has, stuff. So it's like, okay, so yeah, I hear gunshots outside my window, but now I can read about it too. So it's like you never be able to free yourself from that. And I'm not just picking on the Punisher. I'm just saying overall that he's just one example of a bunch of stuff, because you start seeing the same thing. You don't see characters. I don't see underdogs anymore, or heroes that are going out there fighting. Why are you fighting? Why are you donning this costume? Why are you doing these heroic things? Are you struggling to be a hero? Why are power levels so crazy where people are throwing galaxies at each other? That's another thing. Oh yeah, now I can open a dimensional portal. I can enter, it's like that drives me insane. I remember when Fantastic Four, when Reed Richards, when they first battled Galactus. I remember that where they defeated him by fooling him, like when Human Torch went to go get the Ultimate Nullifier, and then reread that classic picture with and he has it in his hand, and Galactus is like, "Whoa, what are you doing, Human?" And again, it's like Reed Richards didn't create no dimensional thing or whatever. He just had this. He bluffed them out. He bluffed them. That's what I'm talking about.
Too much pseudoscience in a world where we have a lot of science. Now, in terms of fantastical creatures, I mean, you created your share with the kaiju and the daikaiju. I mean, so what's the creation process like? Because you've got a world that you've got to inhabit with these creatures.
Yep.
I mean, does it all come straight from your brain? I assume Matthew has input. Does he give you what he needs? Is it a collaborative process?
Well, the thing is, I joked, and I honestly feel that the way Matthew, he and I work, I want to believe that it's close to how Jack Kirby and Stan Lee worked, because Matthew he'll be like for instance, he'll be like wolf kaiju. So I create what I think a wolf kaiju would be. He'll be like for one of the recent ones, he was like monkey kaijus. Like that's all he'll do. He won't give it. We haven't given names to our kaijus. He'll just give them a type, sort of thing. He'll be like, well, this one's hippo kaiju. So in I go, I take that and then I make what I think would be a hippo kaiju. So
and I mean, how long does it take you to come up with a hippo kaiju? I mean, do you have one right away? I assume you don't have one right away. I mean, do you sit down and draw for a day?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, my mom used to joke back in the day. I lived in a lot of fantasy worlds in my head, a lot. And so for me now, as I reach my ripe age, I can just, as soon as I hear something, I'll immediately begin designing a character sheet. And I'll just start doodling and then build up and work off of that. So usually, I'm one of those people where I like to have instantaneous, like this. When I was in art school, and even when I worked in animation as well, many times the people who are my mentors, they would always be like, "Well, sometimes it's that instantaneous kind of like that you should jump on. Don't let it sit too long, because there's a fine line where you can overthink something." Because you're giving it too much thought, so then it kind of overworks it. Whereas if you take that, it's like trying to capture that moment when you were a kid. Like as a kid, when I was a kid and when I was drawing, I drew some of the most craziest stuff. I don't have any of that stuff. I wish I did. But kids have kids have a freedom. They have a freedom. They haven't yet been molded, or sort of like understanding perspective and all that other jargon that comes from going to art school or whatever. They haven't yet been hit with that stuff. So their minds are very like open, free. So usually when I get something, like if you said, "Hey Frank, I don't know, ostrich kaiju," I immediately, my brain just goes. And then I'll just go with the first thoughts. I'll just start rambling off, just drawing some stuff relevant. Because those initial drawings are probably the most purest, rawest forms where you'll get the actual character. Now, because
again, you're over analyzing. You're not diving too far into it. You're just going with what your brain comes out with.
Exactly. Because the thing is that when I actually, going back to Hunter Boss Bwin, when I initially did Hunter Boss Bwin's form, that's the form that people see right now in the books. But I sat back and I had this moment where I was like, maybe I shouldn't make him look that way. And I did another version, and then Matthew hated it. And he was right in hating it. He just was like, oh man, Frank, that's not an element, whatever. But again, it just shows you how like you can look at something and then when you overthink it, it can you might just ruin it. So sometimes that
Yeah.
initial thought, just go with it. If you feel it at that moment, let yourself just go. I call it the art flow. Go into the art flow and just let it flow. And then, once you put it out there, put it away, sit on it, let it sit. And I'm telling you, that might be the image, the right image for it right there.
Now, you're a commercial illustrator.
Yes.
That's your job job, as
Yes.
I say.
Yes.
You ever been a teacher, Frankie? Because you talk like a teacher, and I feel like in a good way. I feel like I'm
Yeah,
sitting
yeah,
in
yeah.
class.
No, well, I did. Well, see, I've done a lot of different things. When I was early in my years, in my 20s, I had a chance to I wasn't a teacher, but I was brought in to do sort of teaching projects. Like for
Hmm.
whatever reason, like for a school system, they'll be like, hey, we need artists to come in. And I did a lot of that back in my 20s, heading into my 30s and
Hmm.
stuff. So off and on, but I wasn't like quote unquote a teacher. I mean, I don't know. I'm very fortunate that I had mentors and people who really saw something in me
Hmm.
during as my growing up stage. Because once I hit high school, I had lofty ideas. I thought I was going to be in the military. I thought in the Air Force. I really thought I was going to be an engineer. I thought I was going to be all over the place. But I had teachers who were like, "Hey, look, this kid has a skill. He has an amazing skill.
Hmm.
He's excited by it. Let's get him into programs that will help." Spur that skill up, help cultivate it. And that's what they did. And then eventually I got a scholarship and then ended up in a really great school that doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. And then when I went to that school, those teachers were all people that worked in the art industry. And I stressed that. I always like originally, trust me, I was in that same frame of mind where I was like, comic books, comic books, comic books, and all that
Yeah.
stuff. But then the reality was like, no, it's not just comic books. This is an art industry. You can
Right.
open yourself up to be a storyboard artist. You could be doing keyframes. You could be working in a toy company. You could be doing concept art. You could be doing layouts. There's a lot of other stuff besides just focusing on just comic books. And you'll find
There's a
that
lot
if
of
you
different directions and different
exactly,
elements.
and if you open yourself up to that, you can eventually go full circle because technically that's what I've done. I've gone full circle because I was my own. I created my own comic book back in 1991 called Peace. It was about a superhero, and I put it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like newsprint and everything. And off and on over the years, I've tried to do my own create my own stuff, but it's hard doing a comic book. It's just
Hmm.
like
And
just
you
like
know
a
what?
film and a business. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? On that note, you guys went the Kickstarter route for
Yes.
Kaijus and
Yes.
Cowboys. Now we mentioned the fourth issue of the book was just successfully funded.
Yes. Yes.
And I mean, I've never kickstarted anything either on
Ooh.
the internet, financially, or
Ooh.
manually.
Ooh.
So I mean, how much anxiety is there in the Kickstarter process? And by
Yep.
extension, because you guys have hit your goal multiple times now.
Yes.
So I mean,
Yes.
what's that I assume it's jubilation. What's that
Yeah.
like when you hit your goal and get what you're looking for?
Oh, it's a fantastic feeling. But I think for me, and I told Matthew, we first off, we're not making money. So
No.
we're not making we're nowhere near like that.
Right.
The greatest gratification for me is getting books in people's hands. And I think the same
Yes.
thing. I said, truthfully, me and Matthew have had very serious talks, and our key thing really is trying to build the IP itself, is to grow the
Hmm.
IP, and also, Matthew wanted to start doing Cambrian comics and stuff like that. I said, hey man, I said my key thing out there is I just want people to get books in their hands. I want them to be reading it. I want to build an organic kind of audience. I want an audience that's going to come back and is going to enjoy this and
Yes.
stuff. So with that said, doing any of these crowdfunders is that people have to understand. First, I would say do your research. If you're talking about, if you have a budget set in mind to do your book, we've already got books already done. Like I'm going to be working on issue 8 in September.
Wow.
So that was another big thing for me because I'm coming from a point working in business where when I worked
Yeah.
in advertising, we had production schedules. When I even did stuff in film and whatever, we had production schedules. You need to have a viable production schedule. That means a realistic one. Usually for each book for Kaijus and Cowboys, we're talking a 3-month span of work. And the
Mhm.
reason why is because you want to have enough time for any kind of edits, any kind of factor like, somebody gets sick. You want to factor in all these different things so that you know that there's not going to be the sense of pressure. You got to make sure that this product's going to be the best product that you can put out. I
Yeah.
would say that, make sure you do your research in that sense. Make sure that you have a realistic production time. Also, start going out there trying to develop your audience. Who are you trying to sell your books to? I had
Mhm.
already been online for years, so I had already been sort of working my way already into giant robots, mecha groups, kaiju groups, and stuff like that. So I've always been around. I'm a collector of it. I'm somebody who, people can look behind.
You
I'm
can
in
see
it.
that.
I'm in it. So the thing is that I'm not
Yeah.
somebody just trying to pose and trying to get people to do whatever. I'm in it. So I'll talk about it. But also, I want to also lead people who might be curious if they're looking for material that because they're like, hey, I can't, where's all the Kaiju comic books at? Where's all the robot books? Well, we're doing it. So
Mhm.
I had already started that marketing plan a year ahead of our first campaign.
Mhm.
And I
Wow.
would say I'm a huge fan of guerrilla marketing. That's guerrilla marketing is it is one of the best kind of marketing that you can do for, especially when you're on a budget, a very tight budget. As somebody coming from advertising, I've worked with teams of people on massive, big budget campaigns, and it takes a team to
Mhm.
do it. And there's a reason why those companies pay money, lots of money,
Yeah.
to these ad agencies to do this. Now, clearly, we don't have that a level of money because if we did, we probably wouldn't be
Right.
doing crowdfunding. So the thing is, if you're doing
Mhm.
crowdfunding, you need to be realistic on what you're capable of spending money on, what you're capable of getting. Make sure that the quality, if you're really in this to do a comic book, focus on the quality of your book. That means from the
Mhm.
writing to the artwork, make sure that it's a solid product. Don't bog yourself down with unnecessary things like trying to get figures and trying to get trading, all that extra stuff that you know
Yeah.
is going to be a burden for you. I would ideally
Mhm.
tell a person to have at least 85% done already, if you can.
Yeah. I would think
85% of the
so.
work done, yes. Because again, we're in this stage now where people, because of elements out there where people have not received product, so
Mhm.
now you have customers and readers out there who have they give you the side eye because they're like, well, are you going to be able to get my stuff to me? Is it going to take you 2, 3 years to do that?
Mhm.
One of the things that we're fighting against that. So we're very hardcore on getting our stuff out to people as soon as possible. So I would say,
It sounds it
yeah,
sounds like there's a big dimension of, and I don't know if I'm supposed to cuss on here, have your shit together.
yes,
It just
it's a business, folks. As soon
Mhm.
as I've always, when I seen people talk about comic books, I say this with much love. I love comic books, but also when you enter that arena of asking people for money,
Mhm.
this is a business now. You are now entering the realm of business. If you're just doing a zine and you're handing it out for free, then you don't need to listen to me. You're doing it because it's giving
Mhm.
you a joy or whatever, then more power to
Yeah.
that. But when you start asking people for money,
Mhm.
and you're saying you're going to have a product for them to get, then you need to follow through with it. Any business out
Mhm.
there would fail if they did not follow through with this. If you're trying to think of it, if you're the coffee shop, the brand new coffee shop just coming out.
Yeah.
But guess what? Before people enter the area where your shop is, they've passed Dunkin' Donuts, Tim Horton,
Mhm.
Honeydew, and a thousand others that are legacy brands
Yeah.
that have
Yeah.
generations of people who, regardless of what, are going to go to those places because they remembered it.
Mhm.
I remember Dunkin' Donuts when I was a kid. So immediately
Yeah.
you go, I'm going to Dunkin'. So what's going to make what you're offering so unique that people are going to say, I'm going to come to their door? Now you got to make sure that you are offering a product that people are going to enjoy, that your customer service is in a place where people can communicate with you. Communication is a key thing. You got to make sure that you're answering people, even if it's uncomfortable. You have to do these things if you're going to get into this business. So I want people to
Mhm.
understand that comic books is just like if you're doing a film. What do you think is going to happen? You're doing a TV show.
Yeah.
If
See,
you're
we need
doing
to
a
have you
yeah,
back because feel like we're scraping the tip of the iceberg with you
Oh
there.
yes.
I feel like
I told you I
there's
can Dragoneer. I can preach, man.
no, man. We can do 3 or 4 of these. I feel like. Okay.
Yes, yes,
Issue number 4
yes.
of Kaijus and Cowboys.
All right.
What have you got in store for us? What can you tell us,
Well, with issue 4,
if anything?
ah, issue 4 is a kind of I can tell you this is that I remember because the way we work is Matthew sends me the script. Like I've seen the overview of where he wants to go. We're planning a 12-issue series. That's the plan.
Yes.
And then we'll see from where we'll go from there. But Matthew sent me an overview of where we want to go with the stories. But that was back in 2019. So I know that
Right.
stories change and whatever, just whatever. But he usually sends me a script. So when I was reading the script, when I was working on issue 4, I was kind of I got a little I got heated, and I told him that.
Okay.
So
Okay.
because some stuff happens,
Okay.
and so that's all I can really say, because I can't tell you too much. I like the idea of the surprise. I like the idea that people read something that they have to read it to get a surprise. You're gonna look at it and you're gonna be like, "Wow, why'd you guys do this?" And then all of a sudden, this happened.
Okay. So we're expecting
You're gonna see some
things to get
changes.
heated.
Things are gonna get heated. Things are gonna get to a
Okay.
next level and stuff because that's it. Because that's how it would be. It's like and if you thought of like how a action story is, especially like a western or whatever, just when you think, well, actually a good example is I'm doing it right now. I'm watching Battlestar Galactica.
Okay.
The
Okay.
2001, oh, which I love. I finally got my wife. I was like, my wife just, I said, "Hon, you got to watch this." And I remember watching that series when it first came out, and I loved it. Why did I love it? Because they would do the rope a dope on you. Just when you got comfortable with a
Mhm.
particular character, something happens. So we're saying the same thing. Something's gonna happen inside issue 4. That's gonna, we're doing a rope a dope, and it's going to continue, and then there's going to be ramifications. It's going to keep going and going and going. Yep.
You
And
know,
issue 5 is coming out in August.
issue 5 in August. Okay.
Yes, in August. Yep.
Okay. Frankie B. Washington, that is Kaijus and Cowboys. When is issue 4 available for us? When can we see it?
As available as like on Indie Planet. Well, okay, here you go. Yes, you got me. You got me. I got a little fumble
I
there for a
got you.
second. Well, the thing is that after every campaign, so we have another campaign coming in August. That will be for issue 5. Now, the way we do this, the way we structured it is that we try to take care of our campaigns during the window of, say, like April, and then we do August, and then we do fulfillment. And after fulfillment, that's when we load up those books. So 4 and 5 will be on Indie Planet and in Global Comics. Unfortunately, folks, probably around the end of November or December.
Okay.
That's why it's
That's when we
so
can
important.
look.
Yeah, that's why it's so important that people, when we have these campaigns, please come on the campaigns. Come on the campaigns and get those books, because you're actually getting a lot more stuff. You'll be able to get it. You also can get some extra little things on the side. You'll get it before anybody else. We want our campaigns to be this special experience for people who love comics. So the comic books
Mhm.
that you see on the campaign, those are only for the campaign. Once the reason why they'll come out on Indie Planet and on Global Comics later is because we have to
Yes.
tweak them. We have to take stuff out of it.
Right.
We have to make sure that
Mhm.
those are for that kind of market, for people who want to get it online and stuff like that. So I would tell anybody out there, as soon as we get the campaign going, that's the best place to get some rare stuff, especially the variant covers. I mean, oh man, we've been able to get some amazing people to do some stuff for some of these covers. I'm not a huge variant cover person, because as a collector, I always love the sense of
Right.
rarity. So if we do a variant
Mhm.
cover, we're only going to do one variant cover, and that's it. And
Right.
it's only going to be for that campaign. So even
Mhm.
though Dope Pope, that's what he goes by. That's his name, his tag online. He is a well-known like creature designer and stuff like that. And he actually did our figure that we did last year for our
Yeah.
campaign. And he's a phenomenal individual. And I said, hey man, we talked about it. And I said, well, let me just see what you can do. And I saw his work, and he did that amazing Hunter Bot B-Win image. And it's like, boom. That's
Excellent.
only available on the April campaign.
Excellent, excellent.
So now,
Frankie B. Washington. Sorry, Frankie B. Washington. The title is Kaijus and Cowboys. It's coming soon. Issue number 4. We got to have you back, my man. I can't wait to see more. Thank you so much for being with us.
No, hey Rob, thank you so much. And you're doing a fantastic job out there, man. You're getting the word out there. This is what it's about. It's like out there connecting with people. Somebody I mean, yeah, I would love to see if you get like some of the big talent guys too, and I think that's great, but also this is what it means for the comic book industry.
Yes.
We got to there's all different kind of people that are part of this whole thing to make this experience for everyone. So I just want to say thank you so much for having me on, and thank you so much for doing what you're doing, and keep doing it.
Yeah, buddy.
Right on. And Dimitri, what's up, man? Shout out.